What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have the keys to the 2023 Ram TRX with the 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi out of the Hellcat, so let's go check it out. I do like how the gear shifter in a lot of the new Dodge Ram trucks, you've got almost like a volume knob to change the gears. I like how the TRX has just the regular gear shifter. That's really nice. I would imagine, I have not used the gear knob or I have not used the volume knob style gear shifter, but I would imagine that's probably prone to electronic issues. It's really neat how they put the VIN number. You can tell it has 11 pounds of boost, 702 horsepower. A lot of the performance specifications are right here on this custom plaque that says TRX at the top. That's pretty neat. So one thing I do want to test with the TRX, and this will be a regular test that I want to do, is a lot of cars you see have wireless charging pads nowadays. But the problem with the wireless charging pads is most of the time they're not universal to every kind of phone that you may have. For example, I have the 16 Pro Max iPhone. The difference is the height of my phone is a lot taller than the standard 16 Pro or even the 16 standard iPhone. And it's the same way with the 14, 15s and further back. The wireless charging coil has to be in a certain spot for your phone to start recording. So it's unfortunately put you in a scenario where you have to find the car that has the charging coil in a spot that matches your phone, and that's not always an easy task to figure out. So I'll be interested in seeing if this one will work with the 16 Pro Max or not. Nudge it a little bit. This is sort of the problem that I'm talking about. Oh, there we go. We were able to get it lined up. It's kind of finicky. Wireless charging still a pretty new technology, so it'll be nice. Hopefully in the future, I know Apple tried to do this for a little while. They weren't successful in creating this, but if the technology can improve to the point where they can maybe overlap charging coils, it's just a copper coil underneath there that emits the electrical charge to charge your phone. Hopefully somebody can come up with an overlapping wireless charging panel on some of these newer vehicles to where you can kind of put the phone, you know, sort of anywhere in that general area and it will charge it. But it is pretty cool. This is the first vehicle I've seen that will actually charge my phone. Usually my phone is much too big for that. Yeah, so infotainment in a lot of the newer vehicles is it depends, you know, on kind of your use case. So a lot of times in a truck, infotainment is less of a focal point, if you will. Whenever you're buying a truck, a lot of times these are purchased for, you know, for job sites or just kind of hauling things. But it is nice to have some of the upgraded features that you see in some of the higher end vehicles a few years ago start to appear in some of these trucks. Now obviously this is a TRX, this is a very high trim level Ram truck. I would imagine that some of the lower trim levels may not have an infotainment to this degree, but it is really nice to have this huge screen. Everything is touch screen. There are still some standard tactile buttons. You still have the knobs for the volume. That's really nice to see. I'm hoping a lot of these car manufacturers don't start following Tesla's suit on having everything be touchscreen. It's really nice to still have knobs. I understand that technology advances and they want things to be modernized, but it really is nice to still have a knob, so that way you can be driving down the road, you don't have to take your eyes off the road, and you can adjust the volume. You can learn after having the vehicle for a while where certain knobs are. You know, if you want to adjust the volume, adjust the radio station that you're listening to. If you still listen to the radio, streaming has kind of made that obsolete for me personally. You've got the trailer steering controls, some auxiliary if you want to wire up things like light bars, things like that. So like I said, this is a Ram TRX, so it does have the different drive modes that you can go back and forth from. We haven't tested those out yet. We'll test them in just a second. You can try you have four-wheel drive auto, four-wheel drive low, four-wheel drive high, As well, if you see this button over here, you've got the launch control, which is pretty cool to see the drag tree over on the left side of it. It's a little Easter egg that they put in there, because this truck, this does have the 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi out of the Hellcat in this, so it does have a 0 to 60 of about, on paper they say 4.4. I've seen people do it in about 3.6. Generally speaking, those 0 to 60 numbers are a little bit conservative. Most of the time you can beat them. The only exception to that would be something like the Teslas. When you're pushing sub 2 second 0 to 60 times, most of the time when they say that number, the Tesla Plaid, for instance, will say they can do it in 1.9 seconds. That's in a perfect scenario on a prep track with brand new tires. You're almost never going to get that in a real world setting. Whereas this truck, they do say 4.4. It's not hard at all to hit a 4.4. You can actually do 3.6 relatively easy, even on an uphill slope. So in a lot of vehicles, one thing that is nice to look at, it's nice to touch initially, is Alcantara. I do like when they put Alcantara in places like the door panel where you're not going to be touching it on a regular basis. The problem with Alcantara is it's known to absorb a lot of the oils and sweat from your fingers. So unfortunately, putting it on a surface such as the steering wheel, as you can see on the top of this steering wheel, it has started showing that. A lot of that will look like it is permanently damaged. Honestly, most of that, what happens when the Alcantara soaks up the oil and sweat from your fingers, is the fibers will actually lay flat instead of staying stood straight up. So all you got to do is get a microfiber. If you do have a vehicle with Alcantara in it, get a microfiber, kind of brush it out. Most of that will come out. I'm not going to guarantee that every bit of that will come out, but you do, unfortunately, if you have a steering wheel with Alcantara on it, you are going to have to be aware that you have to maintain it going forward, or it is going to look like that over time, and it's a little harder to clean once it gets to this point. I will say, in a truck like this, you pretty much going to have this with any larger vehicle. In stop and go traffic like this, we're kind of backed up on the interstate right now. It's a pretty comfortable ride, I will say. I mean, this thing has 702 horsepower, but it's very easy to just kind of be in this stop and go traffic and just kind of cruise along like you're in a regular Ram 1500. So it's really neat to have both the power and the comfort, which is something you don't see in a lot of performance vehicles, such as the Hellcat, which shares the powertrain with this truck. So we switched over to manual mode to try to test out the paddles. We're still in stop and go traffic, so as soon as we can get away from this, we'll be able to test that out and test out some of the different drive modes. I'm really interested to see how much it changes, if any, going from one drive mode to the other. A lot of cars have different drive modes. I don't expect that in this vehicle, but a lot of drive modes in some cars, you can switch from eco to sport and you really can't tell that big of a difference. But given the powertrain that's under the hood of this truck, I would imagine that we're going to be able to tell a pretty substantial difference from the comfort drive mode to the TRX mode. I mean, it's definitely got the power. I mean, you can tell there is 702 horsepower under the hood. Obviously, there's a lot of weight to it. I have 700 in my R8. It doesn't feel quite the same, obviously, because there's a lot more weight to this truck than there is with the roughly 3,300 pounds, if I remember correctly, on the R8. But yeah, a truck this size, a full-size pickup truck with a lift kit on it, being able to take off like that on the interstate is very impressive. I'll be very interested in seeing the difference between this and the Raptor R. I've had a lot of people tell me that the Raptor R is a little bit more impressive. I find that hard to believe. I think this truck sets a huge precedence for the Raptor R. It's got some big shoes to fill for the Raptor R, so I'll be very interested. Hopefully we can get our hands on one of those one of these days. That supercharger whine, I know for a fact that's not something that a Raptor R has, so it'd be very interesting in seeing how it stacks up against, because, you know, ultimately the horsepower is not always the full story, and that's what I tell people all the time with the R8. Sure, there's cars on the road that can outrun my R8. I mean, you slap twin turbos on a C6, C7 Corvette, you're gonna beat me in a roll race. But it's not all about that. Every car has its own experience. Every car has its own comfort level, different, you know, little quirks and features that it has. So to me, it's not all about one factor or the other. It's not all about horsepower. It's not all about looks. It's not all about comfort. It depends on what you're going for in a car. And that's why I wanted to do these reviews and try to make them more, you know, more realistic. I don't really want to regurgitate a lot of the window sticker facts to you. You know, obviously, it's really cool. I brought up the horsepower numbers and things that you have on the plaque. But a lot of this stuff you can Google. You know, I don't want to regurgitate information that you can just Google yourself. I would rather tell you, you know, what's the truck feel like in stop and go traffic? What does it feel like trying to park in a downtown Chattanooga situation? You know, how comfortable are the seats after you're on the road for a few minutes? Because a lot of cars, they may be comfortable when you first hop into it, but, you know, ultimately, whenever you try to go down the road, get stuck in traffic like this, you know, another key point to a truck this size is what are your blind spots like? And I have to say, by the time there's a white van coming right now, and you'll just have to take my word for it, it'll be hard, but by the time that van leaves my blind spot, I can see it with my own eyes on the left side. So there's very, very minimal blind spot in this truck, if any. And honestly, there might even be a little bit more adjustment to make on the mirror if maybe you feel like it's not quite right if you were to drive or purchase one of these TRXs. But I have to say the blind spot's pretty impressive, because I can actually see the rear end of the vehicle at the same time in the mirror as I see the front end when it appears to my left. So there's really not much blind spot in this truck. So we have the truck in sport mode now. I'm going to test out to see if there's any difference between the sport mode and the auto mode. I can already tell by the sound of that supercharger there's a pretty substantial difference. So we'll give it just a second. We'll slow down a little bit, because we're only going to get up to the speed limit. I mean, I have to say, you have to keep in mind, obviously the horsepower number is up to par with the R8, but you have to keep in mind the kind of weight that the motor is having to pull in a truck this size. This is a full size, you know, full cab. There's a ton of room in the back of this truck. We'll show you guys here in a few minutes, but it doesn't pull like the R8, but having this much power under the hood of a full-size pickup truck is very, very impressive. And being able to merge onto traffic, obviously when you get above, say, 50, 60 miles an hour, it doesn't pull as hard. That is due to the weight, but here in the supercharger line and being able to get up to highway speeds as quick as this thing can is very, very impressive. If you want to enter the manual mode in this truck to use the paddle shifters, all you got to do is tap one of the paddles, and then if you want to get out of it, all you got to do is hold the plus. If you want to gear up, you just hold that down for a second and it will switch over into drive. And also, if you wanted to gear down a little quicker, if you're in a higher gear, some vehicles like the R8 will, if you're in a higher gear and you pull up to a red light or whatever and you haven't geared down to first gear, the car will do it automatically. I didn't notice this truck doing that on its own. It seems like it does depend on you, you know, downshifting on your own. So, but one thing you can do is if you're in a higher gear and you want to get down to first really quickly, rather than just tapping it several times, you can hold it down and it will gear down a little quicker down to first gear for you. All right, so one thing about the Ram TRX is, you know, like I said, it has the 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi. I don't like the fact that they put this plastic cover over it. You're hiding that supercharger that people like to see when you pop the hood on either the SRT Hellcat Charger or the Challenger. You can kind of see, you can see the supercharger and that 6.2 liter Hemi right here through the side view, but not really sure why they felt the need to cover it up. Pretty cool to have the TRX logo, but I do feel like that could have been integrated in maybe a more minimal way so that you can still see that motor. Now, one thing I will have to say about this truck, if you decide to get one, I am 6'1", and I kind of have to go on my tippy toes to reach to close this, so keep that in mind if you get one. I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, you don't buy a TRX for that, you don't buy an R8 for the front space. You've got a point, but at the same time, you never know when you're going to be out just doing some spirited driving in an R8 or a TRX, and you find yourself in a position where you have to stop and do something, especially when it comes to the hood. Whenever you pull over, most of the time when you're under the hood of a truck like this, it's not on purpose. You never know when something's going to happen on the side of the road. You have to jump it off, so keep that in mind. If you are a little shorter, keep that in mind that it's going to be pretty difficult for you to reach this unless you stand on maybe the tire or something like that, so just keep that in mind. So one thing about some of the newer trucks that you'll see is the soft open and soft close. Some of the trucks even have the cutout insert in the tailgate where it'll open up separately. You don't have this on the truck, unfortunately. With it being the TRX trim level, it's kind of odd to see them opt to take that out. So you do have to kind of be careful letting this open. Obviously, this is not going to break on the first or even the 15th time that you just let it fall open, but over time, you don't want to do that over and over on these cables because they are kind of known to wear out over time, as with anything. Pretty good. I'm not sure of what the cargo space is exactly. Once again, in a lot of my reviews, I don't want to repeat stuff that you can look up. If you're interested in seeing if the bed of this truck will accommodate some of the typical things that you have in the bed of your truck, definitely Google the dimensions of the cargo area to see if it'll work out for you. But I did want to mention that you don't have a lot of the features in the soft close, soft opening, even the step stool. You know, a lot of the trucks nowadays have the little bar that you can pull out and use as a step to get up into this truck. You also don't have that. But overall, you know, this being the truck that it is, most of the people buying this truck it's going to be purchased for performance. Most of the people that are going to be buying a truck for towing, you're probably going to go with diesel anyways. So it's not a huge issue, just something to mention that you're probably not going to have that with the TRX unless maybe you do it after the fact. So we did want to check out the back seat of this truck. I have not seen the inside of some of the other trim levels, so I'm not sure if this is specific to a TRX or probably just the kind of cab that you go with, but you have a pretty substantial amount of room in the back of this truck. I mean, this is definitely, like I said earlier, I'm 6'1". I would have no doubt that I could lay down right here. I mean, obviously I'm not saying you're going to sleep in your truck, but you know, if you're on a long drive and there's no hotel around, you never know. I'm actually going to get up in here and test that out. So you're not going to be able to lay completely out, at least if you're 6'1" like me, but this kind of gives you an idea of how much space you're dealing with in this truck. I mean, and this is the floorboard. So it's very interesting to see a car, or a truck rather, with this much horsepower, this much performance, this fun to drive, that has that level of comfort in it. Another way that you can get a little more room if you needed it is you actually can lift these seats up to get a little more room to load something in here if you needed to. We go crazy karting a lot. I can definitely picture, honestly, probably I could easily fit 4 crazy carts in here without having to stack them on top of each other, so that would be pretty nice. Obviously after the bed, but still, if something's raining, you may end up having to load something in here. So there's different use cases that you have to keep in mind when you're buying vehicles like that, and that's my intention with these reviews, to point things out that you may have to use in pinches or in certain scenarios where you thought you may not have to use it. So it's really neat to have this much room in the truck. So getting up into the truck, you do have, if you have passengers, if you have kids, there are 2 USB ports, 2 USB-A ports to charge whatever device that you need. You have heated and cooled seats in the back. You also have a regular style 400 watt standard outlet in the back if you want to charge something, maybe like a laptop or something that doesn't have a USB-A or USB-C port on it. So that's really neat to see too. A lot of times you see heated seats in the back, but cooled seats are kind of a new thing to see in rear seats. So that's pretty impressive. So getting into the driver's seat of this truck, you will notice the Harman Kardon sound system. We'll try to find a way to test that out. Obviously we can't play Spotify or Apple Music just for the sake of copyright. We don't want to run into that, but we will try to find some copyright-free music. The only problem is it's hard for you guys to gauge how it actually sounds through the microphone. So little things like that, just keep in mind if we test things out, such as, you know, I can talk all day about the comfort of the seats, comfort of the steering wheel, try to give you my best understanding of it. But until you guys sit in it for yourself, obviously if you're in the market for buying one of these vehicles, you definitely are going to want to go sit in it yourself, test drive it yourself, and then just take all these key things that I'm mentioning into account whenever you're in the market for it. No.
Service required?
It said that earlier too. The key's in my pocket again, let me take it out. So if you just notice, we've had this happen twice. It seems like if I have the key in my left pocket and try to start the truck, it doesn't recognize that the fob is inside the truck. It's a little odd. I don't know if that's just maybe a fluke that I'm running into, but it does seem like you have to have the fob a little further inside the vehicle. So maybe get in the habit of just dropping your keys in the center console. Is what I typically do anyways. Otherwise you may have that issue where it won't start. The easiest way to tell, if you have the AC just left on like we did, as soon as I brought the key far enough into the truck, the AC immediately turned on. So just keep that in mind. Every car has their own kind of little quirks on detecting if the fob is inside the vehicle or not. My BMW 3 Series will do a video on that one day. It even has something kind of odd where you can't put it in drive if the door's still open. So there's little quirks and features that you'll find in trucks like these. And I will recommend Doug DeMuro's video if you want all the like minute quirks and features of any vehicle. Doug DeMuro does an excellent job of going through all of those different features in a car. So definitely check his channel out if you want to learn more about the truck on things that I didn't mention. So one thing I want to test out with this truck is something that a lot of car reviewers don't do, is once again put this truck in a real world scenario. So there's a pretty busy parking lot right over here. I'm going to actually try to go park this truck just to give you an idea on how difficult something like this would be to park if you live in a busy area like Chattanooga. So looks like there's an empty spot right here. I'm going to see how difficult it is to get the truck in and out of this spot right here. So having a camera like this, the top-down view, you're starting to see that in a lot of modern vehicles. That's really, really helpful. And I hope they continue that with a lot of the newer vehicles, especially something this big where you do sort of, I know I talked very highly of the blind spots earlier. That's not really an issue when you're on the interstate. When you're parking, you know, you're kind of wanting to not only take on the interstate, you take the entire car into consideration, but in a situation like this, you're wanting to take very specific parts of the vehicle into consideration. So keep that in mind. But it wasn't too hard to park. The cameras definitely help a lot. Obviously, your level of expertise parking and driving a vehicle of this size is going to come into play, but I do think if you take your time, look at the cameras that are available, you have different views. You have the rear view, which is a standard backup camera. You have, you can do just the full ultra-wide view of the rear. You can do the ultra-wide view of the front, a more narrow view in the front with the top-down view on the left, and you also have a trailer camera. Forward and backwards. If you have a trailer back there, it'd be really nice. And something cool about this, Harrison mentioned this earlier, and this is a very good point. A lot of vehicles, for whatever reason, you're not able to view these cameras whenever you're on the road. This truck you are able to, so if you were hauling something in the back like a side-by-side or another vehicle, whatever it may be, you actually can keep tabs on your load as you're going down the road. So that's really neat to see. So this lot is pay to park. We just wanted to see how difficult it was to park the vehicle, but we're gonna go ahead and leave so we don't get a ticket. Weasel Boy over here interrupting the video. I'll call him back in a minute. Weasel Boy, or Garen, is parking the truck for us. He works over here at North Shore Auto Gallery. We're gonna get some B-roll. It's pretty hot outside today. The camera actually overheated, what, twice, I believe. It's like 90 something degrees. So we're gonna try to do a little bit more footage under the shade. What do you think about it?
It's pretty cool. I like the whine a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, the supercharger whine is pretty impressive. One additional thing about this truck that I forgot to mention earlier is you'll notice these 3 utility lights. So this is actually a Department of Transportation requirement whenever a vehicle is over 80 inches. I don't remember the width of this truck, but it is over it. So in order to have the utility lights that both make it look stylish, they actually integrated the utility lights into this little air scoop, which is pretty cool. Huge shout out to North Shore Auto Gallery for lending us the TRX for today's video. If there's any specific cars you guys want us to review, leave them down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. Peace.